welcome you back to Inside the NBA, presented by Hyundai, and we are joined by the special guest.
That's it, Ginobili!
Points and
What
11
was I
rebounds.
screaming in the green room tonight, Kenny? And you made fun of me last week.
I'm hungry.
Ginobili! My new Ginobili! Ginobili! Ginobili!
He's moving up my list, and that's AK-47. That's Kurlenko, because we just saw.
Ginobili!
Well, I'm gonna tell you, he's number 7 right now.
Oh my God! Ginobili!
And on that note, welcome into Views from the Sideline. It's the Ginobili tribute episode.
If
or
you
at
didn't
least
know
the
his
intro.
name already.
Yeah, Charles let
if
you know his
had
name.
no idea.
And if you have no idea what's happening in the NBA, we've been doing theme episodes recently, but some big news dropped yesterday. Manu Ginobili announced retirement from the NBA, played 16 seasons with the San Antonio Spurs, first ballot Hall of Famer. We wanted to give him our respect of at least acknowledging what Manu did to the game. So before we get into our most overrated and most underrated players in the NBA, just a quick first thing that kind of comes to your mind when you think of Manu Ginobili. I'll hit you first, Malik.
I mean, underrated. He's one of the most underrated players in NBA history. He's probably going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He made the European game. He pretty much made it cool. Everybody wanted to start doing the Euro step, and he brought that style into the game, and it became a regular part of the NBA game and basketball in general.
Yeah. Joe?
Sadly, what I think of is the 2004 Olympics when Manu lit up the United States for 29 points.
Yeah.
And
You gotta
sent us
give him
home
some-
early.
you gotta
And then
give-
they won the gold medal, so that was pretty
A lot
cool.
of people forget about that.
But that was like his big coming out party because that was like the year after his rookie year, I guess. I think.
Second year.
I think he got
he-
drafted in 02.
Yeah,
02?
second
Okay.
year.
So second year. But yeah, the guy is just an animal. He purposely went to play as a 6-man. He's one of the best 6-man of all time. As we listened, I don't even know how many episodes ago now, he's my brother's favorite player, so sad day for him, I'm sure. Maybe crying in his apartment. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, great player. Sad to see him go. But that's
Great career.
the end of that Spurs era.
I'm happy he went out on his own terms as well, too. Kobe didn't really get to because of injury. I mean, there's a bunch of these greats that don't really get to go out on their own terms. Manu aged, for the lack of a better term, gracefully and finished his career out with one team and was fitting. So it's good to see Manu kind of get into that second chapter of his life. And like you said, it's the end of that era. Tony Parker's now in Charlotte. He's probably on his last few years. Tim Duncan's been gone for a couple years. Now Manu's gone, and Pop's probably out the door in a year. So it's the end of the Spurs as we know them, and
New look Spurs.
it'll be interesting to see what they look like. Let's say in like 2 or 3 years when Pop's gone,
when LaMarcus is gone.
LaMarcus is
probably.
gone. We'll see if DeMar's still there. So there's a lot of interesting things happening in San Antonio. So we wanted to give our due diligence to Manu before we get into what our theme is for the show today. Today, each of us has created a list of our top 5 most overrated players and our top 5 most underrated players. Each host will give their number 5 most overrated and most underrated at the same time, and we'll break it down from there, and then we'll keep going until we get to our number 1.
This might be a controversial show.
Very possible,
Oh,
yeah.
it will
I
be,
feel,
right?
Not
off
even.
the-
I was about to say not even might. Yeah, this
Right
is,
off the bat.
I feel like this might be a very intense show, maybe more intense than the ones past. So I'm gonna hit Joe first, as I usually do here. Joe, hit me with your number 5 most overrated player.
Oh, we're going with overrated first? Great. Way to open the show.
That's a hot take.
It's all on you, Joey.
So, Chris is wearing the Detroit Pistons shirt immediately.
Playoff.
And unfortunately, we got to
baby.
talk about overrated players. My number 5 overrated player, which he's going to need to have a big season, though, for us to do anything, is Blake Griffin.
He's overrated?
I think Blake Griffin is overrated.
People don't even talk about him anymore.
I think they still do. I mean, yeah, the
People
hype,
look at Blake Griffin as a superstar.
the hype is definitely
Well, that's just Tom Gores. We're not PG. Don't know what he's
Not
talking.
just
About.
Tom
the hype
Gordon.
has definitely died down a little bit, but I just think like the guy has never. I looked and the guy has never averaged more than a block a game.
Okay,
He's always under a block a game. For as athletic as he is as a big man, and always you think of like he's got some big time blocks and like some big time flashy plays, but other than that, it's like not that good. And especially now, I really don't like him taking more threes. Whereas you look earlier in his career, he was very successful of being like a back to the basket kind of post player. And now he's tried to change his game up, which is okay.
So I'd argue that that's a benefit to Blake.
But I don't think it's working. I think it's taking away from he's taking so many less 2-pointers and he's taking more threes, and it's not really helping his game anymore.
See, I think Blake has, opposed to staying on the block, he's been shooting more mid-range jump shots opposed to threes. I would like to see him reduce the amount of mid-range and go to the 3-point line and to the block, of course, but just eliminate that mid-range jump shot. He shot 35% from deep last year, and that's a big jump for a guy that naturally was not a stretch power forward coming out of college. And he's likely to see that percentage probably go up maybe a tick or two next season. Another thing I want to bring up with Blake, he's one of 3 players in the NBA that average 21 plus points per game, 7 plus assists per game, or 7 plus rebounds per game, and 7 plus assists per game. The other 2 are LeBron James and Giannis Antetokounmpo. People forget how diverse Blake
Did he
Griffin
average
is.
7 assists? I thought I saw 6. I mean,
6.8.
okay, so it's 6.8.
But he's one of the most diverse players in the game with what he can do on the floor. And people forget about that. He's not just a scorer. He's not just a leaper. Especially now, he's not a leaper. He's had to get creative, finishing around the basket and expanding that range. I think people only think of Blake Griffin as the dunker and not the actual player.
I only think he's overrated because people look at him with the way he played the game and his personality. They just saw superstar from the start.
Well, I think,
and he put up good numbers and he was an all-star, but I think at this point he's an all-star level player, not a superstar. But he's still one of the most talented players in the NBA.
No, and
he can handle the ball at a very high level. He might be the best ball handler at the power forward position in the league.
Which is why
he's stretched out to the 3-point line. He's still athletic. He can do almost everything.
But I think that's why I would rather him maybe not necessarily be back to the basket, but try to attack more. And he seemed to, as he's aged, to settle a lot more. And I think that's not where he's at his best. Now, I think he could definitely redeem himself, and I could easily bump him off this list this year. Playing with Reggie Jackson in a pick and roll situation, being able to use Andre or Blake in these pick and rolls could really change that about him and easily bump him off. That's why he's my number 5, because I think he's still there. But just the way that he's progressed in his career, I know he's trying to adapt to the game, but I don't know if it's necessarily helped his game entirely, except for maybe the passing.
I mean, I'll respectfully disagree because I'll get into it a little bit more later. But Joey, who's your your number 5 underrated player?
My number 5 underrated player is Kevin Love.
Oh my God!
Because he had to play. He played under LeBron James, and every time that the Cavs lost or did something, the blame would always be on Kevin Love, and I have no idea why.
Everybody expected
he plays
him,
no defense.
Everybody expected him to be Minnesota K-Love in Cleveland, which makes no sense really when you think about it. How could he possibly be that playing with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving at the time?
No, that's definitely a fair point.
I think people's expectations were through the roof for some unbelievable
But I did
reason.
expect more from Kevin Love. I expected a Chris Bosh level.
I think
he didn't.
I think he's right at Chris Bosh, because Chris Bosh had to do the exact same thing with his career. When he went to go play with LeBron, he stretched out and shot more threes. Whereas originally Chris Bosh was a really good post player. Kevin Love was the same thing. As soon as he comes to LeBron and he needs to be that stretch 4, he really increased his 3-point shooting even more than he had in Minnesota. And it just kind of dwindles what his original game was and how he played the game.
I think one thing you got to look at too, his rebounding. Yeah, he's playing with LeBron and Kyrie, but LeBron's not an all-time rebounder. His rebounding could have been 15, 16 rebounds like it was in Minnesota. I think part of that is effort from Kevin Love.
Well, LeBron was getting, like you said, he was one of the 3 players that averaged 7.
He didn't average double-digit rebounds, though.
Right, but taking away 8 rebounds, and then you get, in this day and age where you want your ball handler.
And there were times where he played along Tristan Thompson, and Tristan Thompson's one job is
Tristan's
to rebound.
overrated.
Right, and with Kevin Love being at the stretch.
But his rebounding is his one job.
But one of Kevin Love's biggest things is his offensive rebounding. When you stretch him out to the 3-point line, you take away those opportunities to get offensive rebounds. But I think just playing under the spotlight of LeBron James is going to make you an underrated player.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a good point. Malik, number 5 overrated player.
My number 5 most underrated player.
Overrated.
Overrated player. This kind of hurt me to put him on the list, but because of the drop off he had this past season compared to the season before, I had to put Andrew Wiggins at my
Wow.
number 5. In the
No, I definitely see that.
in the 2016 season, he averaged 23 points per game and looked like he was becoming the number 1 pick that everybody saw when he first got drafted. He was showing superstar potential. I'm pretty sure he averaged 26 a game for the last 2 months when it was just him and Karl Anthony Towns and Zach LaVine was hurt. In comes Jimmy Butler. You can't let one player just strip away all your confidence as a player. His points dropped from 23 to 17.
That's a big drop.
He went from 76% at the free throw line to 64, which is a horrible drop. I don't understand how you drop that much in terms of free throw shooting. It's like he just decided that he couldn't make an impact anymore, so he would just step back, do things every now and then, and not try to be the player that he was becoming the season before. So it was really disappointing season from Andrew Wiggins, and I hope he gets back to that attacking mentality he had in 2016.
Well, I wonder if Wiggins felt slighted a little bit when Minnesota went out and got Jimmy Butler. When they had Wiggins on the wing, they had Zach LaVine at the time. I wonder if that played a role in how the chemistry seems to not be there for Minnesota right now. And Wiggins just didn't seem to have that much of a drive this past season, like you said. I mean, there's a lot of mental focus that he just lacked, for lack of a better term, because of you don't drop 76% from the free throw line to 64
It's
without just
12%.
not caring.
Exactly.
Like, he has the skill. You're not going to lose that skill by 12% in one summer. So I think a lot of it has to do with the mental part of basketball, and Andrew Wiggins has to grow as a player. And I completely agree with you that he's one of the most overrated players in the NBA. You got anything, Joe? No?
Nope. I agree. I think
Yeah.
he's overrated. He hasn't lived up to the hype.
You
And,
can't let one player just take away your talent.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the points per game makes sense. I mean, Jimmy Butler's an elite
6
scorer.
is
Yeah.
pretty drastic, though.
I know, but when you have Karl Anthony Towns and Jimmy Butler,
He played with the only thing that they've added was Jimmy Butler.
I know, but that's a lot of
But
possessions.
Still, that's
Do you realize how much more of an impact it would have made if he scored just 5 more points per game?
Yeah.
22 points.
2 baskets, 4 points.
Exactly. That he just had he needed to make a little bit more of an impact.
And his field goal shooting was down as well.
Exactly.
It was lower, 40%.
He just took a whole step down.
Yeah.
Right. I would say he's inefficient. That's his
Yeah,
biggest problem.
I agree with that. Malik, number 5 underrated player.
My number 5 most underrated. Are we gonna do honorable mentions?
You
at
can
the
if you
end,
want.
or-
If you want, you can throw
Well,
them in.
I'll-
We might not have time, so you can.
I'll just my honorables were Joe Ingles at Utah.
Yeah.
Great 3-point shooter, plays really hard. Wesley Matthews, people forget
Really?
before he got injured.
Yeah, he's
Since his second season, he's averaged in double figures. He's averaged over 13 points per game, I think 4 or 5 seasons. Always a really good 3-point shooter. Wesley Matthews has never been bad. And Kelly Oubre was my third guy. He
Yeah, I
took
like
a huge
Oubre.
step last year, and I think he could be coming.
Yeah.
And he could end up on another team and really blow up. But my number 5 most underrated is Jonas Valanciunas.
Jonas almost made it for me too.
Jonas-
That's a good call.
Jonas has been a guy that I've enjoyed watching play for the past few years, especially in the playoffs. When guys like Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan wouldn't show up, when they gave the ball to Jonas Valanciunas in the post and told him to just score, he would really just take it to teams, and he played really good on defense, and he rebounded well too. Last year he averaged 12 and 8. He's never been a key part of that offense because they had Kyle Lowry at the point, DeMar DeRozan. They brought in Serge Ibaka. They had Terrence Ross. They've always had other guys that they want to be the key parts of that offense. So Jonas just does his job, and whenever they need him to step up in a key area, he does it for them. And he's just a really good player. Tough guy too. He's like an old school center.
Yeah.
And last year he stretched out to 3-point range.
He wasn't very successful though.
He shot over 40% from 3.
He didn't shoot very many.
He shouldn't.
My
He should
favorite.
only
My,
shoot
fa-
wide open threes.
my favorite clip is Jonas Valanciunas setting up for a 3-point shot in the corner, and Andre Drummond looking at him, noticing it's Jonas, and just waving him off. And as Jonas shoots it,
Disrespectful.
yeah, as Jonas shoots it and just misses it big time.
But Jonas Valanciunas is my 5.
All
Really
right.
good player.
Good pick. My number 5, most overrated player, likely to get lots of scrutiny from both of you guys. Dwight Howard. Center,
Oh, he was almost on my
Washington Wizards.
underrated.
That's not really controversial. A lot of people just don't like Dwight Howard, which
well,
is
I think he's over it. I think there's reasons why he's over it. And I know you guys were like harping on me big time when I thought Martian was better, or I'd rather
that
have.
was a
or-
that was a big stretch.
Yeah. So here's kind of the things that I kind of caught when kind of doing some research on Dwight. He's heading into his 5th team in the past 5 seasons.
But he's become
fifth new team.
He's a journeyman now.
All chemistry problems. He's left teams and the locker room says, "Oh, we didn't care for this guy. That's why he's gone." I mean, he's at, what did he average? 16 points last year. That was his biggest amount of points averaged in 4 years, where he averaged about 13, 14, and 15. Back from the days where he was averaging 20 and 15 in Orlando.
He's also not that young anymore.
Exactly.
And he's not
injuries. Superman.
But people still look at him as the all-star center that he once was in Orlando.
People still respect him like that.
When Dwight Howard signs, it makes big news. And when Dwight Howard comes to an arena, guess who people know? Oh, that's Dwight Howard. When it comes to me selecting an overrated player, the name and the brand they've established in the NBA played a big role. And so, yes, I understand Dwight's on the tail end of his career, probably. But he's just nowhere near what he used to be. And also him trying to be this like perimeter-oriented center now is, I think, in my opinion, a mistake.
Yeah.
He's too old for that. Like, Andre, he's not, I don't think, Andre has a better chance to succeed in that,
Dwight
I think.
taking short, like, bank shots isn't bad to me. Him trying to stretch out and take deeper, I don't
Did you
get
hear
it.
the interview? I can't remember with what media outlet it was, but Dwight's agent said in an interview that Dwight wants to be a form of Kevin Durant. And to me, that was like, dude, just stay, as LeVar Ball once said, stay in your lane.
But that's really the reason why he's been falling out of favor with fans and a lot of people just that enjoy basketball for years because of stuff like that. He's a guy that jokes around. He almost wanted to become the next Shaq, but you're not as good as Shaq. So it just looks like you're a guy that jokes around and just doesn't take stuff seriously. Then you say you want to be a go-to guy in the post, but you're not skilled enough to be a go-to guy in the post. You have a few hook shots and maybe a few up and unders. And when you were young, you could back somebody down and dunk on them. But as you get older, that starts going away. We saw in Houston, that last year he was in Houston, it was a complete joke. Like, he was missing wide open layups and laughing. Yeah. It was really bad watching him that last year in Houston. It just looked like he didn't care anymore. He was on his way out.
Yeah, definitely. So
I actually agree with you.
Yeah, thank you, Malik. I appreciate
that.
But
that's where I don't think that he's overrated because I think he's already gotten past that. I think in Houston he probably was overrated. I think that he still had that superstar hype to him. I think a lot of people have backed off on it to where he's not there anymore. So now that's why I almost put him on my underrated list now because of people going away from him. I think he's still a very solid player. I think he does his job well, and I understand the personality issues, and that's kind of the reason I don't like Andre Drummond all that much entirely. So I get that point of view as like a player, but
if you want to be the jokey guy that likes to have fun, be really good.
Right. Well, he was in,
he was a 3-time defensive player of the year, which is big time, but he wasn't as great as he could have been.
Right. But that's why I'm just saying I don't think he's overrated anymore, like at this stage of his career.
And then my number 5 most underrated player, Blake Griffin.
Yeah, that's what I figured when we're talking.
The crazy thing is I think I'm going to understand both sides.
So
I do.
My thing is, like, health is the biggest concern for Blake, in my opinion. And I think he's more underrated. I can see your viewpoint too from like my previous point of view with Dwight, that like the name is huge. When people hear Blake, okay, they recognize him. So I understand that point of view. But I think people don't see Blake as a basketball player. They see him as a dunker. They see him as an entertainer on the court. And that's where I feel like he's actually underrated because he can do so many things on the court. To me, Blake Griffin's a top 3 power forward in the NBA.
There aren't many power forwards that can match his talent.
Exactly. And, I mean, I'll throw Draymond Green. I still probably take Blake offensively. Draymond, of course, defensively. But it's a toss-up when it comes to that. And another thing, too, is, I mean, Blake has been an all-star every single time that he's played 65-plus games a year. So if he can hit that number, if he can play 70 games this next season, he's going to be an all-star again, especially in a weekend Eastern Conference.
Pistons should be in playoff contention if he stays healthy the whole
They
season.
should. Yeah, definitely. Injuries will play the biggest role in the Pistons season this upcoming year. But yeah, so I understand both point of views when it comes to Blake being overrated or Blake being viewed as underrated. All right, Joe. Number 4 overrated player.
This one was really tough, and I still am not 100% sure if this is correct, so I'll have to gauge on your guys' opinions. But my number 4 is Karl Anthony Towns.
Is this underrated or overrated?
Overrated. Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns averaged 26 and 13 in his second season.
Right. And I think part of that is due to this era of stats. A little bit.
Joey's anti-stats. Joey just wants to roll the ball off the court.
The other thing, though, that plays a big part for me personally is similar to Andrew Wiggins, and Jimmy Butler's talked about it a lot, and I kind of see where Jimmy Butler's talking about is their mentality of these young guys. Again, I understand that they're young.
You sound like an old guy barking at the young kids to get their homework done.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Right. And I get it that he's a young guy. He's still got a lot of talent, obviously. But I think the way that some people have been hyping him up is maybe just a little bit too much at the moment. He definitely can reach it. I don't disagree with that there. But just when I was looking at players down the line, like everybody going into last season was like, this Timberwolves team is going to be dangerous. And they just fell flat.
Well, part of it is you're playing in a really difficult Western Conference. Also, Jimmy Butler's injury played a huge role.
Yeah.
When Jimmy went down, they were a top 4 seed in the West. He came back, they were fighting for their lives, 8, 9 seed. And I think if Jimmy doesn't get hurt, they're in the playoffs. I understand your point when it comes to Cat being overrated. Defensively, he's not there defensively outside of maybe getting a block or two and controlling the glass. He's not there laterally. He's not there engaged in a one-on-one matchup with his opponent. But I disagree that he's overrated. It's too soon.
Yeah, I
and
can't
like
agree.
Malik said, he put up 26 and 13 last year. He shot 40% from deep as a center, and also a center that can block shots and is not just like a stick to the ground below the rim kind of guy.
With him and Joel Embiid, you're looking at this generation's. These are the two guys that we will be looking at until they retire.
If Joel stays healthy,
yeah,
They
them
put
two
up 21 and 12.
Not last
21
year.
and 12.
Not
Okay.
that that's a big deal.
But
it is a big deal.
they're
5 points.
They're the guys we'll be looking at as the next great centers for the next 10 years.
I think it's too soon for Karl, especially since he still was very productive
And
last year.
I think that's what just plays into part of it is I think a lot of these people see these young guys excelling right away, and a lot of them, you don't know like how they're going to develop as a player. So that's the only reason.
You
And then-
think Joel Embiid is overrated?
I almost put him as overrated
Because-
for me.
To an extent,
Yeah.
yeah.
They both are on their way to
Right.
all-time great status.
And that's why
But-
I'll tell you
But
too.
you think it's just because it's too early?
Well, I think
Yeah,
Joel
a
is
little
partly
bit.
because he hasn't proven himself for more than a
Right.
year.
and that he can't play a full season necessarily.
That's my thing with
That's like the
Joel.
same thing. I almost put Ben Simmons on my list as well because
I only didn't put Ben because he came back and
I think
played
you-
all 82.
You can't
this
call
year.
somebody overrated after they win Rookie of the Year.
I think you can, but I think a lot. I left him off the list because I think a lot of people do realize like how bad of a shooter he is, and
Yeah,
that he's
he's
not
terrible.
there, but his talent is there. So that's why I kept him.
All
off.
right, Joe. Number 4, most underrated.
Underrated. Went with my man, New Orleans Pelican, Alfred Payton.
Oh, of course you would. I mean,
Had to
show
throw
some
him in
love. I
there.
like him.
yes.
He's kind of
I've
like
been an
a
Alfred Payton fan for
he's
a
like a
while.
Rondo-esque player.
And he's been shooting the ball better.
Yes,
so
much better.
we'll see. Obviously,
Did
this
he cut,
year,
did
this
he cut
year
the
will
hair?
yeah.
Oh man, he
So-
might be a different player now.
He might
This-
be faster.
So this year could be a big year for him, but I think he's one of those point guards that's kind of in the triple-double range, so a little bit of a stat stuffer, but I think that he's still young, and I think he can show off his IQ and his passing ability.
Yeah, I like it. I like Alfred at number 4 for one of the most underrated players. All right, Malik. Number 4, most overrated.
My number 4 most overrated is Eric Bledsoe.
I almost put Eric on mine. Good call.
For me, I looked at his stats, and as I looked at his Phoenix stats, it was hard for me to say, is this guy, I mean, I said to myself, is this guy overrated really? But he put up quality numbers that never really led to any impact. So pretty much empty numbers. Phoenix never made any type of jump with him as the point guard. He's never made his teammates better. Everybody expected him showing up to Milwaukee They thought he could be that piece that would push them maybe to an Eastern Conference final matchup, but it really didn't make any difference. Giannis was still the guy that had to push them all the way. Eric Bledsoe had his games, but
Yeah, and to your point there, Eric Bledsoe I feel like isn't a good fit because Giannis is in that LeBron, Ben Simmons type of mold where he's
Yes,
a point
he needs the
forward.
ball
He
in
needs
his
the ball,
hands.
especially since he's not a perimeter shooter
Yeah.
yet. He needs the ball in his hand to make plays for himself, for his teammates. And Eric Bledsoe needs the ball in his hands to play at a level that people know him to be. So I think Eric Bledsoe honestly is a bad mix for that Bucks team.
yeah.
It would not surprise me if by the deadline they look to trade him or there's rumors that Bledsoe might be on his way out. I think Malcolm Brogdon is a good fit next to him. He shoots the
Exactly.
ball
I think
very
Malcolm
well.
Brogdon
He
is a
plays
much better
defense.
fit, yeah.
I think they might come to find that Brogdon's the guy that they want to play next to Giannis. Or maybe can't think off the top of my head, but a guy that's better, maybe in a Derek Fisher type mold,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, good pick. Who you got for that was
He
overrated, right?
also got torched by a backup point guard in the playoffs.
Hey, Terry Rozier is underrated.
He was a backup point guard.
Terry number one on
if
most
you're Eric
underrated
Bledsoe
players.
and you're the guy that's supposed to make you can't get destroyed like that.
Yeah. All right, Malik, most underrated.
Number 4 most underrated is Harrison Barnes. And once again, it took me a while to think about this. I looked into his stats, and he's been impressive in Dallas, even though it hasn't led to anything. But look at that roster.
Well, that's the biggest thing to me. Yeah, he's doing good things.
He's
I think
yeah.
Harrison still is more of a name that people actually recognize, and I don't think he's done enough to be overrated or done too little to be or too much to be underrated.
Yeah. He's a guy that not many people pay attention to. He was a young, energetic, athletic piece for the Golden State Warriors, and he fit a great spot for them. He goes to Dallas.
What do you average, like 19 and 5?
He averaged 19 and 6 last year. Not many people understood why he made so much money and why they looked at him as a franchise guy, but he's gotten better every single year. His numbers have gotten better. He's taken the main scoring role for that team, and he hasn't backed down at all. I enjoy watching him play. That team still has a lot of growing to do. They have Dennis Smith as a point guard. They have Luka Doncic now.
The GOAT.
They have DeAndre Jordan and Dirk on his last leg. Still respect Dirk, though. So Harrison Barnes is a guy he's a really good guy. He has a lot of time left in his career, barring injury, so he could get over that 20 point per game point this year if he keeps getting better. And if he does, then people will definitely start paying more attention. And if they win more games. They
definitely
should win a few more.
Yep. I like that pick. All right. My number 4 most overrated player in the NBA is, I think it was Joey I think it was you that said it. Andrew Wiggins. I'm not going to go too in depth on here because we kind of broke it down a lot, but just the stuff that you touched on. His points per game dropped 6 points. His free throw percentage dropped from 76 to 64. His 3-point percentage dropped from 36 to 33. And people only know him because of his high school days. He was so hyped coming out of high school, and his athleticism, his dunking ability. And people still think he's good because of those things. He's just a high volume shooter and an inefficient scorer, in my opinion. And then my number 4 underrated player, TJ Warren, small forward, Phoenix Suns. That's one of Joey's guys. He averaged.
I think he got some spotlight last year. So
yeah. What's up, Malik? What's with the look here, man?
continue, Chris. Continue.
All right.
Yeah, let me think about it. Go on. Build your case.
Okay.
Sir.
So TJ 2 years ago averaged 14 points per game. He upped his scoring to 19.6 this past season. Only issue with him is health, and then he plays in Phoenix. He's only played in like a max of 66 games, which is an issue. Don't get me wrong. But if he played a full season, he would be up there as one of the better 3-and-D type small forwards in the NBA. And where wings are a commodity. Now, it used to be point guards, or it used to be big men back in the day. Then it used to be point guards. Now it's wing players. If you have an elite wing player, you're going to contend in your conference or your division. Malik, I want to hear what you got to say.
I like TJ Warren, but I think he's a guy that you said he averaged 19 last year.
19.6.
I think on a better team,
you seem surprised.
I'm not sure if he would put up better numbers because I think his talent. I think this is the best he can be.
You think this is?
I don't see TJ Warren. I don't see his talent just taking off to some level that's like unbelievable.
I mean,
he has a certain type of game He's a good mid-range shooter. He's tough.
He does need to
he's
work on
tough
his
going to the
3-point
basket.
shooting.
Yeah, I think his 3-point shooting is something that's gonna stay how it is.
You don't think he's gonna ever expand into a 3-point shooting?
I think his talent is at a
Okay.
ceiling. Yeah,
I think he's
it's
crafty
capped
though.
off.
Like back at NC
Oh,
State,
yeah,
he
he's
was
good.
a killer.
He was a problem at NC State that
So-
one year. He didn't he lead the ACC in scoring?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
So I love the guy. I left him off my list because he did get a little bit of spotlight last year. Just a little bit of people talking about him, and for somebody to kind of be being talked about in Phoenix, not named Devin Booker.
Well, that's the thing I was
enough.
gonna say too. To Malik's point, where he's saying he's getting more shots because he's in Phoenix.
Right.
Devin Booker shoots a lot of shots.
Yeah, he's competing with Booker.
Devin
for a
Booker
lot.
shoots a lot of shots.
Booker
but,
shoots like
yeah.
25 field goals a game. So I mean, to put up the amount of the numbers he's putting up, he's still also playing next to a guy that demands the ball and demands shot attempts every game.
And with Phoenix also trying to incorporate Josh Jackson into their lineup.
Yeah. All right, Joey. Number 3 most overrated player.
Number 3, here we go. Overrated, Andrew Wiggins.
Wow.
I'm glad we're all on the
Nothing to
same
be said.
wavelength here.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think he's one of the most common answers when you talk about
Yeah.
overrated players. And again, it almost goes into the LeBron spotlight.
Yeah, he's higher on your list.
He was one of those players that was supposed to be the next LeBron.
Yeah.
Like a couple players have been.
Like Ben Simmons is now.
Right. And
I never heard anybody say he was the next LeBron.
I did.
I heard
Yeah.
people say
No,
people specifically said LeBron.
Yeah.
yeah, people said he was the best prospect coming out of high school since LeBron.
I
James.
heard people
Yeah.
say that, but I never heard anybody say he was literally like he was going to be like LeBron James.
Well,
I heard he was a great prospect,
prospect.
one
I
of the
think- yeah.
best. Yeah.
But yeah, I think his mentality's not there. He's inefficient with his scoring. And
Why can't he get his 3-point shot better?
I
He
mean,
doesn't have a
he's-
bad release.
but he's never really been that 3-point shooter. I think
True.
he's going to be similar to how you're thinking TJ Warren is going to end up, and it's just not going to get there. And that's where I'm scared that it might not. So Andrew Wiggins, my number 3 overrated.
Number 3 most underrated.
Underrated, Josh Richardson of the Miami Heat.
Love that pick,
Yeah.
Joe.
That's a
I mean,
really good pick.
He gave me a
That's
lot of
really
great
good.
fantasy
Yes.
nights, especially down the stretch for Miami. That's part of the reason why people don't talk about him. He's in Miami. They're no big news anymore now that LeBron's gone.
They're still a playoff team, but there's no star.
Right. He's a great scorer, plays defense. He's young, athletic. He does everything right. And, he just plays in that smaller market and goes unseen, but he's great. And especially down the stretch, he had some big games.
I'm proud of you, Joe. That's a good pick. That's a good pick.
That is a good pick.
So, yeah.
Most people don't pay attention to him,
Right.
and he's become a really good guy. I consider Tyler Johnson for the Heat.
Yeah.
See, I didn't consider.
I'm a big fan of Tyler Johnson.
I like Tyler, but I think Josh Richardson is a better version of Tyler Johnson. Josh is a better 3-point shooter. He's more athletic. He's a better finisher around the rim. And
I don't think he's more athletic. Tyler is bouncy.
Josh is
very
bouncy.
bouncy.
Just watch some Josh. They're both bouncy, but
Yeah.
I think that could be a toss-up. But Josh is a way better perimeter defender. I think he's getting up to that spot where KCP is, where Avery Bradley is. I think Josh Richardson is a problem on defense. So I love that pick. Malik, number 3 most overrated player.
My number 3 most overrated is, I don't know if this is going to be a surprise. My number 3 most overrated is Paul George.
That's
That's a
kind of a surprise.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
that's a surprise to me. I'm not sure about that one.
Paul George is an all-star player,
Yeah.
but he's not a game-changing player. And I don't think he ever will be.
He is a game-changing
He's not
player.
a super. No,
What do
he's not. He's not a game-changing player. He's not a superstar. Paul George is not a superstar player.
Okay, he's not putting up. I think you're falling into.
I enjoyed
wait.
him in Indiana.
All right, yeah. Wait,
He had a really great year and a really good year after that.
Malik, I think you're falling into the hole that actually, even though Joey sounds old saying it, I think you're relying on stats making this opinion for you because you like Paul in Indiana, right?
Yes, I do.
His numbers dropped when he went to OKC because he's playing behind Russell. He's still the same type of player, but his numbers are down. And I think you're maybe weighing the numbers here.
I've yet to see Paul George. Those Indiana playoff teams were really good teams.
They were also playing in the Eastern Conference.
Yes, but they were fantastic teams, along with the 6th man of the year,
I don't know
Lance
how-
Stevenson, a good Roy Hibbert. People forget Roy Hibbert was a good
trash can.
was a good
under the
player
rim.
at some point.
He was a trash can
and
under the rim.
David West, who was their most
I
dependable
like
player,
David West.
and a young emerging Paul George. Paul George is not a game changer. He will not lead a team anywhere. And OKC won't win anything with Paul George.
I think OKC is overrated.
I don't think OKC will win anything because they have a Golden State Warrior team that's going to rule the NBA for the next 3-4 years. I think that plays a huge role into it. I think Russell Westbrook might be the biggest issue with OKC.
I don't think they have depth around their team.
They spent
Not
so much
really.
money on a guy like a Jeremy Grant who's going to make like $9 million a year next year.
and a max contract on Paul George.
I think I disagree with you that Paul is overrated.
Me too.
Why do you think everybody thought him and LeBron were going to win a championship together in LA? Why was Paul George the guy that was going to pair up with LeBron and win a championship?
Because he said he was going to go to LA. He was at the time he was a star, and he voiced to Indiana, "Look, guys, I'm leaving, likely headed to LA," without saying it, and that's why people said, "Oh, LeBron's going to join him because Paul George is a sure thing." And that's why they're saying now Kawhi's going to join LeBron because now LeBron's the sure thing, and now Kawhi's the sure thing. So
Kevin Durant joined the Warriors. Is he not a superstar?
Kevin Durant is one of the greatest offensive players in NBA history.
So
Easily.
I'm just saying.
But I don't think he's a superstar. I think he's a really good all-star player.
I respect your opinion.
If he went
but
to LA,
respectfully
I don't
disagree.
think him and LeBron would have just set the NBA on fire. LeBron would have because he's LeBron.
I think they would have
But-
made a lot of noise, to be honest with you.
I think Paul George is slightly not underrated, but people forget about how good of a defensive player he is as well. He plays both sides of the ball,
really
which
good
I think is
all-star
very
player.
important.
When it comes to the elite wings in the NBA, I got LeBron, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, in the class of their own. Paul George is in that second class.
Really good all-star player.
Right
Not a guy that's-
underneath superstar.
I kind of get what Malik is saying, where he's not.
Everybody looks at
He's
him
on
as
that-
if he's that guy.
he's
But to
on
be
the
the number
verge.
3 most overrated player in the NBA,
Right.
I disagree
Right,
with that.
I disagree with that.
To
too.
a slight, I do agree with you that he could be slightly overrated. Slightly.
Right.
Like,
I get the
could
point.
you put him on your list of 25 overrated players? Maybe. But I don't know.
I
That's
just
just in
don't.
my
I don't.
opinion.
I
I
don't
just
think
don't
he's
think
the
so.
guy that everybody sees.
I could. Okay.
Yeah.
He's an all-star player, but
Not the
Not the
superstar.
guy.
Not the superstar.
Okay.
All right. My number 3 overrated player. This is probably too soon. And
I didn't say my
Yeah, you
3
didn't say
oh
underrated.
my gosh,
underrated.
I'm sorry. Malik. Sorry, Paul George.
I
Sorry.
just looked down and realized
Underrated. My apologies.
Yeah. This is a guy that I actually found him first for my list, and he fell to my 3 because I began to realize how much better he was getting throughout his career. My number 3 is Evan Fournier.
See, I considered Evan, and then I just don't think he impacts the game on two sides of the floor. I don't like him defensively. He's a really good offensive player, and I think people don't give him enough credit, but that's all he gives. And there's not much else. He doesn't really pass the ball very well. I think he only averages like 2 assists a game, something close to that.
Oh, he's
a
more,
really good scorer.
He's more of a shooting guard.
He's
than
a
a
really
point
good
guard,
scorer, and I can agree with that completely. And I think he is underrated because he plays in Orlando. But to me, he just needs to do more.
But
I used to be a bigger Evan Fournier fan. He just kind of
Yeah.
disappointed me last year.
I also thought about leaving him off the list as my list started to develop, but I looked deeper into his stats. Along with him averaging 17 points per game last year, he's averaged 17 the past 2 years. He's almost a 40% three-point shooter. He's close to 50% field goal wise. He shoots over 85% from the free throw line. He is a highly efficient scorer that just happens to play for a bad organization and a bad team, but his skill just keeps elevating every year. And I think if he ends up on a good team, I think people are going to start seeing how good Evan Fournier really is, because he's gotten better every year, and I don't see him going down anytime soon unless he gets injured.
All right.
I'm with Chris, and it's more so the same way with Chris. Is like I thought more highly of him for so long, and he's never really eclipsed that
Yeah.
mark.
Yep.
I never
where-
really noticed him until he left Denver.
Yeah, so like I've always expected him to keep raising the bar, and he hasn't really gotten over the hump. So that's kind of why I can see him. He used to be one of my underrated
Yeah.
players, similar to Chris, but Not anymore.
All right.
Understand that.
I'm trying to get through my number threes pretty quickly here. My number 3 most overrated player. I'm not sure where you guys stand on this though. Lonzo Ball of the Lakers.
Considered him.
And
I can't. I
now I understand. I can
okay,
understand.
listen.
I can understand him not being or me overreacting. I understand that completely because I'm basing it more off the hype and the name and the brand.
This is my problem. This
And
is my
what's
problem.
your problem? Say it.
I'm about to
Go,
get heated on
please,
this one.
please.
Why do people listen to LeVar Ball?
Because he's associated with Lonzo.
Why do people listen? He's a kid's dad.
Okay.
So what?
And Lonzo, it doesn't matter. Lonzo doesn't discredit him. Lonzo.
Why would he discredit his dad? He's been listening to his dad his whole life. It's just his dad.
But you just said, why does anybody listen to LeVar? Why does anybody listen to him?
I don't
Because
understand why
Lonzo
people
doesn't
listen to him.
discredit him. Because Lonzo doesn't discredit him as like, that's just my dad. You know how he
He
is.
said that. He said that's been my dad, and he's done that his entire life.
You are who you affiliate yourself with.
That's his dad.
I'm just saying. That's gonna
That's
be
his dad. He loves
that's
his
going
father.
to be his career. His entire
He's always
career.
going to be linked to LeVar Ball.
Right.
And the amount of hype that LeVar builds around him. He's always going to be linked to it until Lonzo shuts it down. Which he, like you said, since it's his dad, he's not going to.
I've never understood why people just can't watch him.
We can. I'm just saying he's
And-
overrated.
Why? Okay, why is he an overrated player? Besides LeVar's hype.
Okay, besides the LeVar hype, I understand that.
He was a high pick.
It's number 2
Yes.
pick overall.
Yes.
Shot 30% from 3. That's terrible as a point guard.
Oh yeah, he had a
Hold
horrible
on,
start from the 3-point line.
Let me rattle this off.
He had a
real quick
horrible
for you.
start from the 3-point
He
line.
shot 36% from the floor. From the floor.
He had a really bad start offensively. Really bad.
Yeah, okay. Coming from a guy that's okay. But that's not good.
But
And
people
also think
hyped
about
him up to
Think
be
about
a
his
good
shooting
shooter.
form. Think about his shooting form for a second. As he dribbles when he's going to his right, the ball is always placed on his hip to his left. He can never shoot a pull-up jump shot going to his right because the ball is on his hip. If a defender is close onto him, they can slap that ball right out of his
He
hands.
can't do it consistently.
You never
Probably
go
not.
back and watch some gameplay.
I saw him
re-
do it a few times later.
There
in the
was very
season.
few times that he attempted a pull-up jump. That was because the defender had more. There's more space between him and the defender. If a defender is in his jersey, like a KCP or an Avery Bradley might be, just somewhere down the line, it's hard for Lonzo to get that shot up, and that's why you see him go more to the floaters, probably farther out than you would like. So just those kind of structural things played a role into me also putting him as overrated, along with the LeVar Ball hype.
I never expected him to be any type of offensive juggernaut.
I did.
I
People
never,
talked about
I
how
never
good of a
saw
shooter
that at
he was.
UCLA.
They talked about that he was a lights out shooter from deep. He shot 30%.
And he started horribly.
He finished 30% from 3.
The last
we
2
had
months,
82
the
games.
last 2 months of
Malik.
the season, he shot over 37% from 3, and he shot really good in several games.
All right, to that
He got
point,
better throughout the
to
season.
that point, Andre Drummond shot about 80% from the free throw line to start the season. He finished 60%.
And it's a huge improvement.
It still is an improvement, but I'm
Him-
just saying you have to take into account the entire season.
Oh yeah, it was a really bad start. Really bad start.
All right.
I'm not. Yeah,
No.
I can't be delusional
He
and be
just
like,
has
nah.
he just had too much hype going into
That's my
draft
thing.
night.
Exactly.
I
Chris's point.
didn't listen to any hype people put on him. I knew what he could do, and that was it.
All right. I'm going to try to get through these pretty fast now because we spent probably too much time on Lonzo.
11-7-7 is a really good rookie season. Okay, let's move on.
Malik's got to get the last word in. That's okay. Josh Richardson was my number 3 most
Nice.
underrated player. So I had to give Joey. We already broke that down. So we're going to go into number 2. Joey, number 2 most overrated player.
Similar to why Malik thought that Paul George was overrated. I'm going with his counterpart, Russell Westbrook. He's overrated. I've said it multiple times. I think the stats.
I knew you would say something.
I understand. Like he's very talented. Again, he's very talented. But I think he's in that same category where he's not the difference maker for a team. He's already kind of proven it that he can't get his team past the playoffs because even with these crazy, absurd numbers, it's not really getting anything done.
To you, it's empty stats.
Right. And sometimes I think his IQ is a little bit lacking at times. He definitely has the drive, though, and that's for sure. But there's just something about him where he's inefficient as well. And
Comes up short in big moments.
right. And I think that's part of like that's his game too. Like he's not the greatest shooter out there, and he hasn't really improved in his shooting all that much. And that's where I think he's not the guy. And with a lot of people thinking that he's like one of the best players in the NBA, which I mean he's top 10 for sure, but a lot of people think he is the like superstar point guard in this league, and I just don't think so. And I think he's just overrated in that sense. And I mean, I have a little bias. I don't like him per se, but I still think he is overrated.
That's valid points, though. Valid points.
I hope all Russell Westbrook fans come after you in the comments. That would be great to see.
Why not?
Because they're ridiculous and hilarious.
Just
Why not, Joe?
wait till they win a playoff game.
All right, who's your number 2 most underrated player?
Nikola Vucevic.
He was on my list.
He was on my underrated for years.
Yeah.
Evan Fournier.
Yes,
he never.
I can understand. I can understand that.
And his lack of his ability to play defense played a role in it as well. But yeah,
I think my biggest thing for him recently is that injuries have been a big deal for him. But I still think he's a solid player. He's gotten even better from the 3-point line. I think he does a lot. He can do a lot more than he's shown. But I understand your point. He's similar to Fournier, where he hasn't necessarily gotten over the hump, but I think a lot of people overlook him again.
Yeah. All right, Malik, number 2 most overrated player.
My number 2 most overrated is Hassan Whiteside.
You know, I think people have softened on the Hassan Whiteside stance because he took such a dramatic dip last year from the get-go that people don't even look at him as a big-time player anymore. In my opinion, I feel like that's what it is. But I agree with you. I think Hassan is super overrated because he got his check, he got his money, he got that guaranteed deal. He's done. He's gone.
He played it perfect.
Yeah,
He did.
I think even though he had a bit of a slide last season, and let's not talk about my main reason in my notes is just watch the Philly series for why he's so overrated because he did nothing at all in that
Kelly
series.
Olynyk played more minutes than him in crunch time.
Yeah, it was pitiful. But a few years ago, he has a 17-14 season. Everybody starts going crazy over Hassan Whiteside. Everybody thinks he's going to be an all-star for years to come. He has the great defense. His offense is developing. And his offense has developed. He's a really good defender when he puts in the effort. But that's the problem.
Yeah.
When he doesn't want to put in the effort.
You can tell, too.
Yeah, you can tell the entire time he's playing when he doesn't put in effort. And when you do it for an entire playoff series and you just play nonchalantly like nothing matters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, definitely.
you don't deserve any type of praise.
Yeah. Who's your number 2 underrated?
Number 2 underrated. Almost put him at my number 1, Tobias Harris.
See, Tobias
Still hasn't made an all-star team.
No. But here's the thing with Tobias. Like, I feel like he's so underrated that he's overrated now. Like, he's been so He's been so.
I don't think so.
If this makes any, I think I even talked about
I
this.
get it. He's one of those things where he's like
He's been talked about as like the most underrated player in the NBA for the past 2 years. And don't get me, he's putting up awesome numbers. He's super efficient. He maybe a better way to describe him would be one of the best players average NBA fans don't know about. But in the general NBA community, he's been so underrated, he's overrated to me now. So I didn't put him on. I thought, for me, in general, I just could not put him on either list.
I didn't put Gary Harris on my underrated list because of that.
Yeah.
I've heard everybody talk about how underrated he is, and I couldn't put him on there just because of that. Whenever I watch highlights, I hear analysts talk about Tobias Harris.
I kind of did the same thing with Gary, too.
I don't hear fans talk about Tobias Harris. I hear analysts talk about him, and that's it. So he's so good of a player. He should make an all-star team this year, or
I don't know.
He
in
might
the West,
not because
he's
in the West, he might be a guy that makes one or never makes one, and has always been really good. But he has the numbers. He's a fantastic 3-point shooter. He's getting better every year. I wish the Pistons kept him. It's sad.
I think
I'd
Tobias.
rather have Blake.
Tobias is like
You'd rather have Blake.
Yeah.
Tobias is like everybody's
Blake's a better player.
favorite indie band, and they're always like, I like this band, and it's like some obscure name that nobody knows about, and they're like, yeah, I like them, and then you realize that all these other people like them because nobody else talks about them. So then everybody's actually talking about them.
Exactly.
I think Tobias was a better fit though for the Pistons.
For how the roster was constructed before, yeah. But I think it'll change. Is this my turn?
Yes.
Okay. My number 2 most overrated. I'm gonna try to get through these fast because I want to spend as much time on our number 1s as possible.
My number 1's a big one.
My number 2 most overrated player in the NBA, Carmelo Anthony.
One of my friends earlier told me if somebody says Carmelo, slap him.
Why?
But
Why?
I'm not that big of a Carmelo fan as he is. So
tell him to watch the film from last year. I mean, Carmelo
was completely out of place in that offense. Although he was
even the year
he didn't
before
play
in
good,
New York.
but
In New York, he still was not that good, man.
because he's averaged over 20 almost every season.
It's
his
stats,
career.
man. It's
I have
just
to give
stats.
him respect for that.
It's just
Have to give him
stats. He hasn't
respect.
done
I'm
anything to improve a team. He had one successful season, in my opinion.
Well,
that was when they went to the second round. And the Western Conference, and I'll give the Western Conference Finals team too, but that had a lot to do with Chauncey Billups. He just hasn't succeeded because I feel like he puts his numbers atop team success. And to me, people think Carmelo is a better player than he actually is.
He thinks his numbers are going to lead to team success. The
And
more
it's
you
not
get,
going
the more
to.
you get
Yeah.
him the ball, the better the team has a chance to win. That's probably I guarantee that's been his mindset his entire career.
And then
give me the ball and we're gonna win.
And then my number 2 most underrated player. I wish I had more time to talk about this. Torian Prince from Atlanta.
Number 2.
Number 2. He's only heading into year 3. He's a premier defender on the wing.
I considered him for this list, but
just under 40% from 3. He could grow into an elite wing. He's still young. He's still growing big each year. And he's going to become the focal point of that offense this year. So I think Torian's going to have a big year coming up. Number 1 most overrated player. Remember, we got 9 minutes to the end of the show. So
can I do my underrated first? Because the overrated's more.
All right. Number 1 most underrated.
Underrated easily for me, Domantas Sabonis.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you left a big one off your list.
I think
number 1.
I think this
most
guy has
underrated player in the NBA.
I think this guy has a lot of talent.
I'm a big time Domantas Sabonis fan,
I
but
probably
number
should've put him
1
in my
underrated by far.
Yeah, I remember watching this guy in college in the NCAA tournament, and he is just a stud. I think.
Yeah, it's
and,
college. We're
like,
talking about NBA.
In the NBA, we'll talk about it. He has been super efficient for his role in that team. Like, if he was a starter and played all the time, his numbers would be great. But he doesn't get that time in Indiana for some reason. I know they're trying to get Miles Turner going.
And Thaddeus Young, too.
Yeah, they need to give up on that. I don't know why they
who's
went
your
back to him.
Who's your number 2
Thaddeus
most
Young
overrated?
has been one of the most underrated players in the league for a long time, but
And
he's
not
coming to
anymore,
the end of his career.
Yeah.
Not recently.
Most overrated, Joe.
So I don't know if you guys saw the Bleacher Report.
No, but let's hear it, though. Come on.
So their number 1 overrated player was the same as mine, Jason Tatum.
I almost put him on mine, too.
Okay.
All right, because
So Stephen A. Smith.
I agree with this completely.
Stephen A.
Malik.
Smith and Max Kellerman totally disagreed. They ripped Bleacher Report completely for saying this. But because of that, they then went on to say how they think that the Celtics offense is going to be centered around Jason Tatum this year. There's no way. He's a great player. But the way that people have been talking after his playoff series.
He averaged 13 points per game last year.
Right.
People are acting like he averaged 20.
And people are putting him in that superstar elite status before he's made it there.
He's not even made it to all-star status yet.
This offseason has been so much around the Celtics and how much it revolves around Jason Tatum being this superstar player for them. Don't get me wrong, Malik, I get it. He's got the talent. He can get
He's
there.
young. But right now.
But the way that people have talked after one mediocre playoff series is insane. He will be the 3rd or 4th option potentially when Hayward and Kyrie Irving come back.
No. I want you to, because we only have 4 minutes left in the show. I want to get to your most over and underrated. If we have time, you can chime in. I don't want you to go through the show.
do this quick.
I gotta do it, man. All right, Malik, who's your number 4? If you have something quick, no, just go with your number 4 most overrated.
Number 1?
Or number 1 most overrated, sorry.
My number 1 most overrated, I thought it was obvious. Kyle Lowry is the most overrated player in the NBA.
He was on my list, too.
He's
I
up
like
there.
that.
Kyle Lowry is the most overrated
He's
player
slow
in the
on
NBA.
defense. He's slow on offense. His shooting's declining. He's aging, and people still look at him as an all-star point guard. I agree with you. I think that's a good pick.
And he can barely function in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's actually a really good pick. Malik, what's your number 1 most underrated?
My number 1 most underrated is a guy that I've been a big fan of for years, and I think he should have had at least 3 All-Stars by now, Goran Dragic. 50-win team in Phoenix. They didn't get in because the West was insane that year, and he averaged over 20 points per game, and I thought he got snubbed. Goes to Miami, stays really good, averages 17 immediately. I think he averaged 20 one more time. He averaged 17, 4 and 4 last year. Goran Dragic is I think the most underrated player in the NBA.
If you asked me this question 2 years ago, I'd say yes.
I'm with Chris on that.
If you ask me today, I can't say yes to that. But I agree with you. He's one of the more underrated players. But the more as time goes, people recognize him, and he still hasn't. He's made the All-Star game once.
he finally made an All-Star team
Yeah.
because some people got hurt.
Yeah, but
Just because people got hurt.
he could have made a stamp on the Eastern Conference this past season. He didn't. He
He was injured for most of the year.
not for the latter part of the year though. No, but I agree with you. He's still underrated, but to me, he's just not the number one anymore. My number one most underrated player. I don't know how he's not even on your guys' list.
Underrated. Okay.
Oh wait, I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'll go underrated.
Either way,
I'll go overrated first, actually. Most overrated, Zach LaVine.
Wow.
he was close. I think he's still.
Wow.
He shot 38% from the field. Shoots about 30% from deep. Plays maybe the worst defender in the NBA outside James Harden, and he got paid 4 years, $78 million all because of the hype from his dunk contest. So that's why he's
a highlight reel.
He's a highlight reel. He's like a bigger version of Andrew Wiggins when it comes to like that viewpoint of mine, where he's known for the dunking and not the actual.
I know somebody that thinks he's going to be the next Kobe. Okay.
Look at the inefficiency too. He's a high volume shooter and just an absolutely inefficient scorer. All you have to do is look at just player efficiency ratios. And then my most underrated player, Aaron Gordon of the Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
He started to take. He's starting to become the player
No, he
people
started,
thought
but
he
he
was.
took
Yeah.
he took a little bit step back at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I'm not
There
going
was
to knock
big-
him
there was-
just for a little bit.
No. It was
missed
actually a
out.
big part of the season because they started off strong.
Yeah.
And then they tailed off big time at the end. He's been working out with KD this summer. He's improving his 3-point shot. His ball handling keeps improving. I think this guy, I'm going to go on a limb and say he's an all-star next year.
You think he was the most overrated?
No, underrated.
Underrated.
Oh,
underrated. He's
okay.
my most underrated player in the NBA. And I think he put up some solid numbers last year all around. He's in that Blake Griffin type mold, only he's more angled towards a small forward position, as Blake's slightly more angled to a power forward position, if that makes any sense.
I think he got enough spotlight for me last year. Another highlight
He
reel,
had
so
some
you
big
see him a lot.
games.
So I think that's why I left him off my list.
See, to me, he only averaged, what was it? He averaged 18 points last game, points per game. I think he's gonna hit 20. I think he might hit 10 rebounds per game. And Orlando's gonna put the ball in his hands all year long. So that was a good show, guys. I gotta say.
We got a minute, Malik. What's your Jason Tatum?
Oh yeah, what's your?
You don't have to put up amazing numbers for somebody to see greatness within you. His talent is surpassing most players in the NBA. He has everything. There's nothing he can't do on offense. He's going to become there's nothing he cannot do on offense. He's going to become a better defender each year. Jason Tatum is going to be unbelievable. He is.
Malik just proved my point, people. We'll see at the end.
We just went on the biggest.
We'll
tangent
see you
of
at the
26.
end of this season.
Jason
Oh
Tatum
my
is
God.
ridiculous.
Perhaps
He's
earlier.
ridiculous.
What is? Malik's gonna wear a Jason Tatum jersey to the show.
It was
next
1
week.
year, one playoff series, or one playoff time. I don't know. A couple rounds.
Well, that's gonna do it for the show this week. Great show. Most overrated, most underrated. Next week, we might be getting into some NBA previews. It's about that time. Training camp's around the corner. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
That unbelievable talent isn't going anywhere ever.